Hi, this is Joseph Grove. I edited a book recently with this guy right here, Dr. Peter Salerno. It is called Living Well After 65, Blowing Through the Stop Sign of Old Age. And we're going to talk about the book, why Dr. Salerno wrote it, and I'll tell you where you can find the book upon the conclusion of his remarks. So let me put this down a little bit so it's not showing in the frame. And I'll say thank you, Dr. Salerno. It was a pleasure to work with you on this book. I'm 62, so I'm certainly about to be in the demographic that you describe after 65. Why did you write this book?
Okay, several reasons. First of all, it's important to understand that something like 11,000, 12,000 persons are retiring every day for the next 4 or 5 years. That's millions of people who are moving through 65 into a whole new world, right? Now, the issue is that for the first 50 years of life, let me use a metaphor. The sun is rising, right? It's a beautiful light. The light from a rising sun is invigorating. In the first 50 years of life, everything is pretty much laid out for us, all right? We go from education to family to career, and all those steps are pretty clear from the perspective of how we are to direct our lives and what kind of a direction we're supposed to take. And all of that has been well studied. The various stages that are involved in that process. Abraham Maslow, Gail Sheehy, Eric Erickson, all of those folks have really done a great job of examining, analyzing the various stages that are involved in the first 50 years of life, okay? Now, the second half of life, the sun begins to set. Now, the light from a setting sun is every bit as beautiful as the light from a rising sun. It's an entirely different light. And in the second half of life, okay, there are no schools. First half of life, I don't care what it is that you want to learn, there's a school. You can learn something, okay? It doesn't matter what you're interested in, there's a school. Second half of life, no schools. So we are on our own in a way that we've never been on our own before. And the question becomes one of, okay, since the skills for the second half of life are entirely different than the first half of life, what are we going to do? And how do we handle that? Okay. Where are we going to learn the kinds of things that you need to know about the second half of life? No schools. We're on our own. And we have to really be creative. Now, the issue here for us then is one of, okay, if that is true, what are the kinds of adjustments that I'm going to need to make in order to be able to successfully transition from a world which has been clearly choreographed for me into a world which now I am pretty much on my own. And it's a world that has not had a great many persons studying it, so there aren't really clear developmental stages laid out for us. And we're looking at a lot of people who are entering that world. Now, I think it's also important to understand that each one of these stages of life, for example, you have in the early stages of life, you have an identity crisis for youngsters, okay? And then you have a midlife crisis, right? Now, notice the word crisis. Why do we attach the word crisis to these stages? Because they are unbelievably critical. And the point about a crisis, which is very important to keep in mind, is crises do not slowly bubble up from the bottom. They don't give you time to adjust or adapt. They break down from the top and they come in overnight. And suddenly you got a before and you got an after. And where you go into this crisis is not going to be where you come out. You either come out, I'm going to use a technical term, at a higher level of integration or a lower level of integration. But what does that mean? It means that you either come out as a stronger person, a wiser person with better resources, growth and development, or you come out at a lower level where you fall behind or you can be in trouble for not being able to keep up with everything else that's going on. But the point is, you don't come out at the same place.
Let's talk about some of the chapters in the book. You mentioned the host of issues that people going into the 65 and later years face. What are some of those issues that you address chapter by chapter?
Okay, so let me take this from a personal perspective. One of the reasons why I've written this book is because of my own personal journey. In '98, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. The thing that I learned from that, and that was incredibly important, is there was a little test, I'll get a little bit detailed, called a PSA, a prostate-specific antigen test, okay? Now, guys who didn't have that before me, by 5 years, most of them didn't make it through, they're not with us anymore. I was lucky. I had that test. And that test gave me, because of that, I was able to diagnose the cancer. And anybody who knows anything about prostate cancer knows that your PSA, when it gets up around 20, is really dangerous, okay? It's got to be two or less. And there's also another detail involved in another measurement called the Gleason scale, which goes from 0 to 8. And that scale measures how diffuse this cancer is. Is it cohesive or is it diffuse? The higher the scale, the more dangerous it is. I had a 7, okay? My PSA was up in the 30s. Now, the important thing is none of that mattered. It didn't matter that I had a very dangerous cancer. It didn't matter that I had a high PSA because we caught it early. There was a test. The point I'm making is modern medicine, because of that test, gave me 25, 30, 40 more years of life. Now, we're now living in an age where modern medicine is really adding longevity wonderfully to the lives of so many people, okay? And I think it's important to keep that in mind, that we're very fortunate in the sense that we're living longer now because of these modern medicines that are available to us and modern technologies. And the question becomes one of, okay, lots more time. How are we going to handle that, all right? And what I realized is I just can't lay back and say, okay, now I hit 65. Now what am I going to do? I've really got to think in terms of how do I want to develop the rest of my life? What are the skills that I'm going to need? And this is where the book comes into play, because I talk about the importance of the whole field of medicine and how that's impacting your life. In one of the chapters, I speak about the skills that are incredibly important for us to be able to negotiate the next 25 or 30 years. For an example, Bill Clinton comes to office 1992, something like that. He's in office for 8 years. When he comes into office, guess how many websites there were? 50. He leaves office 8 years later. Guess how many websites there are? 50 million. We go from 50 to 50 million in 8 years. Just think about how fast our society changes. COVID-19 comes out of nowhere, shuts the globe down in 4 weeks. What that told me was our society and the events within our society are not going to slow down. They're only going to speed up. We are now on the other side of COVID-19, and I don't think it's going to slow down. I think it's going to get even faster. So what are the skills that we need to have in order to be able to adjust to a society that is moving that quickly?
So the flexibility is tough for people of any age, but perhaps more so, and maybe this is clear, for people who are 65 plus. So adaptability is one of the skills that you talk about. And then you mentioned some of the healthcare challenges, how difficult it is to find doctors and to have them treat seniors, they're retiring, so rapidly. And then you also talk about relationships, both familial and romantic. What makes it so challenging for people 65 and older, and what can they do to better navigate relationships?
Okay, so let's take a look at it from my perspective. I'm married for 20 some odd years. Speaking to you, Joe, just speaking to my wife, just though I was speaking to you. The next, in front of me, she suddenly drops to the floor, and 30 days later, she's gone. She's dead. It changes that quickly. And suddenly, I'm thrust into a whole new world that I am unfamiliar with. What do I do now? Do there's a grieving process that was really powerful. Do I let her go completely? Do I keep some part of her within my psyche still alive? How do I relate to other people outside of my relation? I've been married for 20 years. How do I relate to people outside of that? Do I start dating again? Should I? So all of those questions begin to come into play. And so people who are who are moving through 65, lose a spouse, their lives change, they go through a divorce. They're having to navigate a whole new world of relationships. How do I know that this person that I'm inviting into my life is trustworthy? How do I know I can rely on them? How do I know that this person isn't just going to take advantage of me one way or the other? We have all of those dynamics going on. And interestingly enough, the studies are showing that as we get older, the whole dimension of our sexual life is very active. Okay, people are not allowing that part of their lives to go to sleep, become dormant. So we're involved emotionally, we're involved sexually, and we have to figure out how to deal with all of these new changes.
Yeah.
Who can we trust? Who can we rely on? These dating sites are just perilous. Okay, they're really highly questionable. And what kind of a relationship do I want now? If I'm fortunate enough to continue to maintain a marriage that goes on for a number of years after 65, okay, what is it that we want for our relationship together? Do we want to be able to continue to take care of our family, grandkids? Is it important for us to be able to move on and be able to travel? What are the demands that we're going to now be facing? If we lose a spouse, as in my case, what do we do? Do we remarry? Do we just establish a good friendship with a person of the opposite sex where we can communicate and relate to each other in some really warm, loving ways? All of these questions begin to come into effect. And, we're looking at estates, we're looking at financial responsibilities. It's complicated. So the important point of this book is to help you navigate those kinds of waters because they're tricky. They're not easy.
Right.
And I want to say that again to people who are moving through their 60s into their 70s. It doesn't get easier. It becomes more complicated, particularly if you're successful. Because if you're successful, more people are going to be looking to you. They're going to be asking you for guidance. You're going to feel like you even have more responsibilities in a number of ways. So it's important to be able to know, how do I know what to do when I feel like I don't know what to do? And that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, because I think there are answers in this book for those kinds of questions.
Let's talk about one final part of the book, and of which there are, of course, many. But one part that's really interesting to me is the importance of keeping one's mind sharp and growing. I know you, for example, are learning a language. You're learning how to play an instrument. Let us know why you think that's such a critical part of the aging process.
One of the reasons is because it's fun. I mean, it is really enjoyable. I picked up the mandolin in my 80s. Okay, I couldn't read a note, and I want to give my music teacher. This is really incredibly important for people my age and older. Keep a good teacher in your life. I never want to go through life without a good teacher. I've got a great teacher here with Joe. Okay, make sure that you have to. Okay, and what I found with music is now just think about it for a second. I look at a little black dot on a piece of paper. I translate that dot into a note. That note gets translated into my brain somehow, where I am able to strum with my right hand and hold a chord with my left, all based upon a couple of black dots on a piece of paper. It's absolutely amazing as to what takes place in your brain. It's got to be good for your brain. And every study that has ever been done says that music is a wonderful discipline for growth and development for your brain. Then I decided I wanted to convert to the guitar. So I now play the guitar. I can play Malagueña on the guitar. Now, Malagueña is a really complicated tune, all right? And if you ever get a chance to read this book, you'll see that I've actually, with my music teacher, been able to create a song called "Softly in the Rain," which is just a little ballad, but it actually is playable. And if you want to play it, you can. And then language. I'll give you a quick anecdote on this. Okay, my dad came from Italy. All right. Now my father really didn't speak very good English. He really spoke good Italian, but he wanted us to learn English. Okay, so he never spoke Italian at home, and what I learned was bad English. I could have learned good Italian, but what I learned was bad English. All right, so one of the things I decided to do later on in life was to really learn. Look, I went to school and obviously developed my English skills, but I also decided I wanted to go to school and get a teacher and learn Italian. So I took Italian lessons. So between the language and between the music, I think that's the sort of thing we've got to do for our brains. Now, there may be other things that you can do. All kinds of deferred possibilities. First 65 years of life, you got to make a living. You got to earn a living, right? So you don't have time to do X, Y, Z. And you may have deferred possibilities. Just put them off by virtue of the fact that you just didn't have time or the wherewithal to develop them. Now, what I'm saying to you is, it may be that some of those deferred possibilities you can now exemplify, you can now tap into, you can now work with. Okay, I'll just give you personal examples. I'm both a clinician and an ordained Presbyterian minister. So every sermon that I ever preached, I hand wrote. Okay, now the reason why I did that is because someday I thought maybe I might be able to do some writing, and here I am, writing a book. Okay.
Yeah.
So I kept that.
How old are you, Dr. Salerno?
How old am I now?
Yes.
93.
93. And still, and just now writing a book for the first time and already contemplating a follow-up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, so perhaps I can exemplify for you the kinds of things that you need to be thinking about. Exemplify for you the fact that as you cross over into your 60s and your 70s, there are areas that you need to be thinking about how to create and develop a life for yourself. Now, the more you do this, the less dependent you're going to be upon others to take care of you. This past Sunday, there were two articles in the New York Times, which I thought were Sunday Times, which I thought were interesting. One had to do with a mom who was a part of the sandwich generation. She's in the middle of having to take care of older parents who have not been able to take care of themselves, and also to take care of her children, and somehow to make a life for herself. All right, unbelievably difficult circumstance to find yourself in. And so as older people, one of the things we can do is help ourselves in ways that we don't become dependent on others and create difficulties for them. The other article that I thought was fascinating was this article on a dairy farm that, and this is all last Sunday's New York Times, called Buttermilk Farms, in business for 80, 90 years, and they can't make it. They had to shut down, and apparently there are farmers all over our country now who, for whatever reasons, are going bankrupt. Okay, and they're going out of business, and the Buttermilk Farms was really painful because they had really become attached to the very animals that were producing the milk, and they gave them names.
Yeah.
And then the auctioneer had to come in one day, auction them all off, and their family business, which was in operation for tens of years, gone overnight. Okay, now that's how quickly our society is changing. And what are the skills that family needs in order to be able now to adjust to a whole new world? And that's what we're talking about. What are the discrimination skills that they need to have? How do they know what they're in control of and what they're not in control of? How do they know what they're responsible for and what they're not responsible for? How do they know to make the right decisions as to how they're going to move forward in life, all right? Move their family forward, their futures forward. Those are important questions. And one of the things I feel good about is if you read this book, you'll actually see a step-by-step process of here's how you make a decision. Follow these steps, and you can use this as a template for any decision that you want to make. Okay, little or small. Okay, I'll give it to you very quickly. What's the decision to be made? That's column 1. Column 2. What are the factors, not the emotions, the factors that are going to impact column 1? Column 3. If I make this decision, how is it going to make my life better? Why would any of us make any decisions to make our life worse? Column 4. What is the timeline? Every decision has got a timeline. I don't care what it is. You want to go to school? 4 years usually. Pregnancy, 9 months. Whatever the case, every decision has got a timeline. Column number 5, all right? What are the wild cards that could cause me a problem if I make this decision? Column number 6, do I execute? Now, I don't care whether you're dealing with something that's trivial or whether you're dealing with buying a car or buying a home. Use that template. Just lay it across the decision, and that'll give you a good guide of how to do it. Now, that's part of what this book is about. It's about giving you skills in order to be able to make good decisions as you move forward in your life.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Salerno. The book is Living Well After 65, Blowing Through the Stop Sign of Old Age. We'll put a link adjacent to this video where you can check it out online at Amazon.com. And you can read Dr. Salerno's blog about the book and the related topics at livingwellafter65.com. So thank you. And we hope you check out the book and that you like it. And we'll be back probably with some other videos later to go deeper into it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.